And welcome to the Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight, a production of the Libertarian Party Affiliate Support Committee, Valerie Sarwalk, Chair, and of course, the Libertarian National Committee, Joe Bishop Henchman, Chair. As always, John Gapso is on the big board. He's the one who will bring you the incriminating photos, links to the internet, all sorts of entertaining information about tonight's guests, the newly minted state chair of the state of Oklahoma. And of course, I'm talking about Kevin Hobbie. Kevin, welcome to Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight.
Hey, Pat. Thanks for having me on. I'm super excited.
Absolutely. You know, tonight we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff, best practices, legislative affairs, events, activism, your get out the vote effort, candidate selection. You know, in a sense, you'll drive the ship. We want to hear about what the Oklahoma Libertarian Party has to say. But at the same token, a lot of our focus tonight, besides being obviously about the affiliate, is just what your plans for growth are, what's worked, occasionally a little story about what may not have worked. It's all important as we share information from affiliate to affiliate around the United States and, well, ultimately around the world, as hopefully as the year goes on, we incorporate some of our, if you will, overseas libertarian affiliates. And in joining us later, you've got a special guest, right?
Yes, sir. We'll be bringing on Drew Cook. Drew is the chair of our Central region. He's also the founder of the Libertarian Party Sober Caucus. He's out there doing all the work as far as he's brought on 2 new affiliates in the past year, county affiliates. He's also spreading this message to, former addicts and things like that to bring them into the party, to really give them a voice where they haven't had one in the past. So I think he'd be a great guest.
Excellent. So let's talk about Oklahoma. Give us a flavor, if you will, for the recent history of the party there, where your challenges are, where your soft spots are, where it's been a slam dunk. What are the politics of Oklahoma?
Well, Oklahoma is extremely conservative, very, very right-leaning, very, very Trumpster, that type of thing. We are seeing a little bit of growth from the progressive side. Mainly that's coming from people that are immigrating here, whatever you want to say, refugees from California, Washington, Oregon, those other states. As they get more progressive, they come here, then they spread their progressive message a little bit more. So we've actually seen quite a bit of growth in the past couple of years. When I first came on in 2018, there were roughly 6,000 of us, and in just 2 years, we're at a little over 15,000. So we're growing pretty rapidly. And I think that a lot of that comes from, we're seeing some conservative voters that were turned off by Trump. We're also seeing some progressive voters that were kind of turned off by Biden and Hillary. So we've got kind of this good mix of conservatives and progressives that are looking for something different. A good thing that we have here in the OKLP is we're made up of a lot of left-leaning libertarians, a lot of more conservative libertarians, and so we can message to both sides. Me, myself, I'm a more progressive libertarian. I came from the left, was a former Democrat, reluctantly worked on Obama's campaign in 2008, even though I thought he was way too conservative. And, kind of went from there. We have some really great conservatives that came from the right. Todd Hagopian being one of those. He was a former Republican that was turned off by Trump, came over. So we're able to message to both sides. And one of our biggest challenges here has been that since the state is so conservative and libertarians are kind of looked at as this wacky group, we've had a hard time messaging to them. When it comes to progressives, we're looked at as being, the selfish libertarians. So we've really had to work on that as well. And those are our challenges in the state. But we're seeing a lot of growth. We're doing a lot of things. And I think that the future is bright for the OKLP.
So in terms of state issues, and, and on the pair of shows that we do, both on Friday night, our candidate show and this show, we talk a lot about messaging on what I call lunch pail issues, everyday issues, as much as you and I enjoy Austrian economics and a variety of, let's say deep wonk, the average voter in a given state, a given county, a given city, maybe even the smallest of town, well, they've got their own fears, obsessions, loves, hates. I guess you can largely take a state like Oklahoma and describe the concerns of the electorate into 2 groups, COVID, and then there's the rest of the stuff. So What's been the reaction? What style of governance has occurred during the COVID arena, if you will, in Oklahoma? And then what else are Oklahomans worried about?
So we've seen, I know that we've seen a couple of governors that, they got some credit, DeSantis, and a couple other people, they got credit for their COVID response. Our governor, he really left it up to the municipalities. So we've had certain cities that were more, conservative and didn't do a mask mandate and things like that. Then we've seen more that went more progressive, and they went with a super hard mask mandate, super hard shutdown. So we've had quite a mix here within our state. As far as the messaging on that goes, it's been pretty easy for us. We've talked about being anti-mask mandate, being anti these things. We have a lot of people that believe in private business practices and things like that here. And so we've done really well messaging on that. We've done really well messaging on, it being a personal choice. If you want to wear a mask, then wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, then don't wear a mask, and that type of thing, So we've done really well with that. When it comes to Oklahomans and their issues, being a conservative state, most people care about taxes. The thing that we're doing with that, we're making a big push right now about abolishing the state income tax. It's something that we've been talking about a little. You'll see some of our posts. And what we're really building up to right now is we kind of have this idea of we're going to steal a little bit from what Yang did. And we're going to find a couple of families here in Oklahoma, and we're going to reimburse them what they pay in income taxes, state income taxes, so that they can see what that money would do. Because a lot of the times when people look at numbers and things like that, they don't really know what that's like. They don't know what that extra $113, that's the average every 2 weeks that they pay in state income, could do for them. How many diapers that could buy for their kids, how many school supplies they could use that money to save up for a vacation and things like that. So we're going to do that and really press that issue. We're also seeing a huge push for recreational marijuana here. Of course, we're backing that. We obviously want to decriminalize all drugs, but we've got to take it one step at a time when it comes to that. We've got to kind of ease people into that. So that's really what we're focusing on right now. We've had a couple of really crazy bills come up that we've been speaking out against. We had a bill to create a Bigfoot season because our legislators really care about the big important issues. So we've got a Bigfoot hunting season now. We're also naming a highway that nobody drives down out in the panhandle after Donald Trump, because those are really big issues that Oklahomans worry about, And so we were just kind of pushing this idea that your legislators not only don't care about you, but they're openly mocking you at this point.
Right. Literally, there are life and death concerns going on. It pains me to even say these words, the reopening of the economy, as if the government has been given control, and it's a central cause that I think we all agree we need to fight. But the notion that the government has to give us permission to engage in commerce is both ridiculous, pathetic, and tragicomic at the same time. And yet, a few words come to mind. Most of them begin with M, but there's these. I mean, here in Rhode Island, we just had the life-affirming issue of renaming the airport. The airport that's been a loser for years, as if renaming it is going to change the course of mankind. Meanwhile, we're in a state that some estimate 40%, and God bless George Carlin, wherever he is, he would have a field day on this. But we inhabit people are nutrition impaired. That means they're malnourished. Yeah. Okay. And in the year 2021, in a state that's a mere 40 miles from pre-COVID, one of the hottest economies on the planet in Boston, it's enraging, absolutely enraging. Some other issues in Oklahoma and how you folks are trying to address this. Education nationally, as studies have come out from the educational industry, who are admitting, in a sense, defeat, that school systems around the country spend way too much time teaching to the test, are focused on social justice issues as opposed to the fundamentals. What are the schools like in Oklahoma? Do you have traction for things like vouchers or private school support? Where are things there?
So we have a fairly good system here. We pretty much allow homeschooling to do kind of whatever they please. There are a lot of private options, a lot of affordable private options. And there's a big push right now. There's a bill that's coming out to fund students instead of systems, as Corey DeAngelis would put it, with a voucher system and things like that. So we're really going to, education's a big thing here. It's a big thing for the OKLP. It's something that we're going to support, is this system where we're going to give the funding directly to the students and let them choose between private, charter, home, micro, whatever they want, and make the public schools compete, because right now our current system is really baffling, and it's the only government program that we have that operates like this, where the money goes to these district assigned locations. So, if you look at it, like, imagine if food stamps were that way. Imagine if you could only shop at the Walmart that was in your district, and if you wanted to shop at Trader Joe's, then Walmart got to keep 60% of your food stamps and you had to pay for the rest. And if you wanted to shop at Whole Foods, then you had to pay it all out of pocket, but Walmart still got to keep your money. That's exactly the way the school funding system works. And it's kind of baffling. And we hear these arguments of, well, it's separation of church and state. There's absolutely nothing that prevents any other government welfare program, to go to churches. So you can use your Social Security check to buy food for a church potluck, or give tithe, or whatever you want. So those mandates aren't in place for every other government welfare program. Why are they in place for education? And when you start getting into this and breaking it down into that, then people kind of lose their argument. They don't really there's no good reason. People say, well, if we go to the system, then nobody will be in public schools, then it'll defund the public schools. Well, if the public schools are so great, then why would people pull their kids out? If you're so confident in your public schools being the good way, then why are you afraid of them competing? If you look at studies, whenever a private school or a charter school are introduced, the test scores at the public school go up. And it's because people have to compete, and it all comes down to competition. Our current system, if a private school is doing badly, it closes. If a public school is doing badly, it gets more money. It's a crazy system.
Right. No, I agree completely. It brings up to a question. Is the state of Oklahoma actively engaged in, if you will, rallying against legislation, supporting legislation? Do you have a lobbyist style operation going on yet? Have you immersed yourself in the legislature?
So we have recently kind of restructured with our deal. We have a couple of at-larges now that are going to be working on lobbying and things like that when it comes to bills that we're going to support, bills that we're going to be against. We have a team that's looking at local legislation, and we're going through and really trying to figure out what we're going to support, what we're not going to support, what we're going to speak out against, what we're going to protest, and then going and lobbying on our behalf. That is a relatively new thing that we've just introduced. We've always had people that were active, but never in official capacity, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And on top of that, is that driven by the affiliate structure, or is that part of the state function?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Is that driven by the affiliate structure, or is that part of the state?
So that's part of the state. The affiliates, I believe some of the local affiliates are setting up a smaller version of that. But the way that we kind of do it is the state, we're there to support the affiliates, but we don't really govern and rule over the affiliates. So we don't tell them, you have to do this, you have to do that. We're just there to provide support for these affiliates. That comes mainly from a messaging standpoint, where what works in Oklahoma City, where I live, is not going to work in, say, Atoka, Oklahoma, where I'm from. The very different messaging and things like that. So it doesn't make sense for the state party to be kind of ruling over those affiliates.
Interesting. So let's talk about then the affiliate structure. It's a big part of the focus on the show. How many affiliates do you have? I know we're going to bring on one of your affiliate chiefs towards the end of the show, but how many affiliates do you have? What's the mechanism for growing affiliates? And are you looking at a county basis, a regional basis, a city basis? What's the approach?
The way it works is you've got your state, and then that branches down to regions. We have 7 regions. And then within that, there are counties, and you can have a county affiliate within the region. When you get into like Central's had 2 that they've added, which is our most populous region. A couple of the other regions are working on adding some others. Northeast just added another one as well within the past, I believe, 2 months. And so it kind of filters down from there. And that's the way that we do it. We would eventually love to get to a point where we could be like California and have like a a city affiliate, you know, but we just haven't got to that point yet. Our numbers aren't there. Our structure is not there, but that's the way it works. We have our state, and then that filters down to the regions, and then the regions filter down to the counties.
Now, how is ballot access managed
Well,
in the great state of Oklahoma?
So it's dependent on statewide elections. Thanks to the great and powerful Todd Hagopian, we are locked in for a couple of more years. We're looking at a couple of state races to be in just to secure ballot access, like a gubernatorial race and things like that. We're a long ways from winning governor, but like Chase Crum says right there, we're lucky to have a lot of passionate people involved. We're a ways away from winning governor, but I think that this next election cycle, we could see one of our first congressional or Senate wins on the state level. We've got quite a bit of city council wins and a couple of school board wins here recently. Chris Powell just won City of Bethany re-election with 76% of the vote. So what we're seeing here is, you know, it's kind of hard to get in the door, but once we're in the door, they really like us.
Interesting. So what are the mechanisms that will give you state ballot access? Is it executive offices, statewide offices?
It's statewide offices. So we've got, you know, like that's governor, corporation commission is a huge thing here just because we have the oil and gas industry, which governs that. So it accounts for almost 40% of the jobs here. Arguably, when you get into the service industries and things like that, it's closer to 60%. So Todd was able to secure ballot access for us with his corporation commission run. Prior to that, Chris Powell secured it with his gubernatorial run, and we're hoping to continue it just as long as we can. We're seeing such a large amount of growth that we're pretty confident that we're just going to continue winning these local elections and securing our ballot access.
So there's a little bit of luxury in there for you to focus on what we call here hyper-local elections. We hate to say down ballot because that seems to trivialize, I think, some of the most important elections going on in the Libertarian Party nationally. Is your focus heavily on molten maneuver-like approaches where you go after boards, cities, towns?
That's what our approach is right now. We have pretty limited resources whenever it comes to money and volunteers, so we're trying to focus on these winnable city council elections, because the idea is that, you know, whenever you see like a presidential candidate, if you're not a libertarian, we as libertarians, we think of ourselves as like everybody cares what the Libertarian Party's doing, but they really don't. They don't know that we exist. When you see them, it's just this weird other party. You know, that's how we're looked at. Like, we're the third largest party. We are the libertarians. We're here. We're doing things. However, this idea that, you know, we're going to have this savior to come in and we're going to win the presidential election is really baffling to me, because people don't know who we are. So our idea is we're going to win a couple of city council races, and then maybe that city council member runs for, you know, Congress or state Senate or something like that. And instead of it being, you know, oh, that's that libertarian, you know, I think he's like a liberal, but he's like a Republican light. Maybe he's a Republican that likes to smoke weed, whatever that is. It's, oh, that's Kevin. Like, I know him. He's the city council member there in Oklahoma City. Or that's Chad. He's the mayor at Choctaw, you know? And so that's our idea. We're going to introduce them to us via winning these local elections, these local nonpartisan elections. And then when it comes around to it, it's like, oh, that's what a libertarian is. It's that guy that I see, you know, at the VA cookouts, at the, you know, all the local events and things like that. I know that guy. I don't have to worry about what a libertarian is and all these other things, because when you Google libertarian, you know, you're going to get Joe Exotic and all these other things that are kind of hard for us to separate from. But that's our idea right now. So we're focusing on securing ballot access with 2.5% of the vote of a statewide election, and then really hyper focusing on those smaller local elections, because that's where we can have the biggest impact in Oklahomans' lives.
And that is so very, very important. We often say, particularly on our candidate show, that the town councils, the water boards, the school boards are critically important for our philosophy and our future as a movement, as well as a political party, because for many times those are the offices that people come directly into contact most in their lives. And very often the libertarian, you know, I always think about Kara Schultz in Burnsville, Minnesota. You know, for a lot of people in Minnesota, you know, they hadn't met a libertarian before. And imagine that we're blessed enough to have someone like Kara be that first person. someone who is that libertarian, right? So,
Right.
Who's ethical, considerate, kind, but aggressively pro-individual in terms of day-to-day governance. We don't even like that word here. Every show I mention, we prefer the word steward as opposed to governing. That G word is a dirty word.
It is.
So it's the luxury of not having to, as they do have to in some states. In Rhode Island, for example, ballot access is either the presidency or the gubernatorial election. In one of the bluest states in the nation. Yikes. So you've got that individual, affiliate structure built. Who is charged with pioneering new affiliates? Is it an organic process where it bubbles up from the local community? Is it driven by a sort of a search team? How does that physically work?
So we actually have an at-large that's in charge of affiliate outreach and stuff like that. Them and our vice chair, they kind of look at areas where we have a lot of registered libertarians or a lot of people that are in the party, and will reach out and say like, hey, noticed you're part of the OKLP, but there's not a regional affiliate there. Would you like to, this is how we can do it, et cetera, and kind of get them the resources in order to do that.
Excellent. And so is there a minimum size that you find ideal? Is it typically based on a city, or are you continuing to look regionally?
Well, we're continuing to look regionally. We like to have enough to fill, a whole XCOM.
Right.
So, 3 to 5. We have some that, like our Southeast region has 3 on its board, and then they're working on growing and getting more people involved and stuff like that. They just recently had a convention. They are, and so that's where they go. We have a minimum, they've got to have at least 3 really. That's how they can make it work, and then past that, however big they want to grow, and then that'll filter down to counties, et cetera. So,
and I've got to ask you. You mentioned that name. That whole Joe Exotic thing, what kind of impact has that had on you folks there? Is it just kind of a curiosity? Do people obsess over that? Or is it a passive fad?
It's something that you see a lot of, because it was a lot of, it was pretty popular when COVID hit and everybody was at home and they got to watch the Tiger King, and they think that that's their idea of a libertarian. So what I always say is, man, here's the thing. Joe Exotic's campaign slogan was "Let's fix this." That's how terrible our government is, that Joe Exotic wanted to fix it. And that kind of just turns it on its head at that point.
Right. No, I hear you completely. We've got our own cast of characters in New England that have had similar impacts on us. Criminal justice. Oklahoma City, I've spent time in Oklahoma City. It's a wonderful city. But like most cities, it's urban, and you've got that central conflict, if you will, between a variety of constituencies in a city like Oklahoma City, and then, of course, merge that into in a backdrop of a red state, thin blue line policing environment. What are the politics of criminal justice in Oklahoma, and how have you folks decided to approach that?
So it's very conservative, very thin blue line, that type of thing. We just recently saw a bill that an anti-doxing bill is how they sold it, that basically makes it illegal for you to record police, and a couple of other bills that have come up that are very thin blue line, very things like that. We have a big criminal justice problem here, and that's a big problem that we deal with. We are combating that by just getting better messaging. We also just recently won a Supreme Court appeal there was an anti-panhandling bill that came up in OKC, which was basically the city trying to cover up that. So the Oklahoma City has this program called MAPS, and they sell it as like their latest slogan was "We love OKC." And it's this MAPS program. It's where they take really, really downtrodden areas of the city and they kind of beautify them. But what happens is they what really happens is they displace the homeless population. Then the homeless
Right.
people start panhandling in these areas that they turned into tourist attractions, and they didn't like it. So they made this bill, this anti-panhandling bill, and they sold it as safety. It's unsafe to be
Of
in the
course.
medians and stuff like that. We were recently able to overturn that. We challenged it in court. We're able to win. So that's some of the stuff that we're doing. We've also had a couple of protests. The Oklahoma County Jail is really kind of a gulag. I mean, it's not a nice place. There's a lot of bad things that are happening, a lot of mismanagement. We've had a couple of deaths there that were, under questionable circumstances and things like that.
Right.
We recently held some
Unexplained.
protests there.
Now
Unexplained.
unexplained, air quotes, unexplained. And no, I think the term after 2 or 3 weeks is as still yet unexplained. And then eventually it becomes a cold case if people haven't forgotten completely. There are so many states that ironically are considered blue who wage war on the visibly poor and seem to forget, because as we like to say here, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights is a wonderful document per se. I'm a post-constitutionalist. I don't need a constitution to tell me what my natural born rights are, but at the same time, sure as hell makes it easier in court to defend some of these intrusions. Folks seem to forget that there is a constitutional prohibition against aiding and engaging in acts which constitute cruel and unusual punishment. It's right up there next to that Second Amendment that Republicans always seem to remember. And it's right up next to that First Amendment that liberal Democrats always seem to remember. Everybody forgets the Fourth Amendment, right? So,
Right.
How important is it to message to a community that is completely marginalized by an oppressive government that simultaneously, if you will, patronizes them in the days preceding an election?
It's pretty difficult, especially, in this area, kind of given the demographics and things like that. But it's something that we're really working on. It's something that we're trying to kind of find some common ground there and bring some sensibility into the debate, just because it really is something that, we can continue to have these arguments. Libertarians are really great at arguments, man. We are the smartest people in every room. We've been winning online arguments and losing elections for 50 years. And that just hasn't worked for us, So the thing that we're trying to do right now is kind of find common ground. So say, okay, so you agree that, over policing is bad. Okay. But you don't believe that we should defund the police. Okay, well, what's the common ground there? Like, let's find something here and let's incrementalize it down. And once you kind of bring that reasoning into it, we're not going to have a libertarian society overnight. And so what we need to do is find some common ground and support these bills that are at least getting us a little bit closer there, because it's a train track, right? And we're just laying the tracks right now. The train's not even on it. And anybody that's going to help us get a little bit further, it doesn't matter where they get off. As long as we're moving that train further towards liberty, we're good. And so that's what we're trying to do here, is kind of unite with, because we don't have a large populace in Congress, at the state level governance. We're trying to work with the people that we've got in order to bring some reasoning and some logic to them and move it closer to liberty.
Get out the vote efforts. I mean, is that something you've been able to focus on at the affiliate or state level, or is that still really up to the individual candidate?
It has been a lot up to individual candidates. We've promoted it a little bit on the social media and things like that. And then, the state party has supported candidates, and we've gone out and given rides to people that didn't have the ability to make it to their polling station and things like that. But it's going to be a big focus for us going forward. We historically have a really low voter turnout. And even amongst libertarians, we have a low voter turnout, which is kind of crazy to me, but that's going to be a big drive that we have here in the next couple of years. It's part of my plan is to get more people to vote. Even if they're not voting for us, the more people that vote, the better it is,
If you're just joining us, Kevin Hobbie, the newly elected chairman, the freshly minted, if you will, chairman of the Oklahoma Libertarian Party, is joining us. And we're just sort of doing a whirlwind conversation, sort of a tour through Oklahoma politics and how their affiliate is working to adapt to and meet these sort of whack-a-mole like daily crisis du jour challenges that face an active libertarian affiliate. And it's always interesting to hear, based on just the radically different makeup of different states, how folks are adapting and improvising and trying to overcome, as they say in the military, these sort of nascent crises, which constantly pop up. We spoke briefly about when you ran, you look specifically to bring people together. Tell us a little bit more of that and about that. And the purpose of the show is not just to focus on the positive, but it's to always be constructive and not dive into the weeds. So we talk from sort of a topside viewpoint about these issues, but I find it fascinating that you address this very directly as part of your campaign. Tell me a little bit more about the unity issue.
So Unity I'm a member of the Unity Coalition, one of the founding members of it. It is a group of people that are getting together to kind of stop the caucus infighting and focus on the liberty. I had been talking about this since I was vice chair 2 years ago, that this infighting, this who's the real libertarian, all of those things, it's not doing us any good. We are continuing to fight and bicker with each other when we should be fighting and bickering with the state. And like I said earlier, there are many different kinds of libertarians, and this gatekeeping, this person's not a real libertarian, that person's not a real libertarian. I don't have any interest in being the most libertarian to ever libertarian when I'm in the breadlines, because that's where we're headed. And so I ran on this message of unity. I ran under the Unity Coalition banner of just uniting the caucuses on the things that we can, because there are a lot of things that we agree on, and there may be a lot of things that we don't agree on, and that's fine. As long as we're working on fighting the state, that's what we need to focus on. And eventually there'll be a point where we've got the state down. I would love for the state to get down to a point where the thing that we're arguing about is which libertarian is the real libertarian. But at this point, it doesn't matter, man. We're spending so much time arguing amongst one another and not focusing on the things that we need to focus on, that it's not doing us any good. I don't care if, you think property rights stop at the border. I don't care if, you're an anarchist or a libsoc or a Prag or a Mises or anything like that, because outside of the party, nobody cares. And that's the thing that we really need to focus on. So that was what I ran on. I ran on a unity banner. I'm not affiliated with any caucus. The reason why we made the Unity Coalition a coalition instead of a caucus is because we didn't see a point in just adding another caucus when there are 50 other ones out there. And, some of them do positive, some of them do negative. But at the end of the day, it doesn't, as long as you're working towards liberty, I'm with you. And we can address that other stuff whenever we get there.
Excellent. Before we bring on our other guest, you gave a pretty provocative speech as part of that, and you were nice enough, because we talked about it a little bit in the pre-show conversation, as they say in showbiz. Maybe we could bring that up if we have that. I believe we have that, and maybe you could just give voice to that as to why that was so important to you.
So when I was working, this was my closing statement at the debate, and I can just go ahead and read it to you. My idea was this summed up my messaging. And I said, I want to leave you today with a quote: "Little hinges swing big doors." It's by W. Clement Stone. And what it essentially means is that it's the little things we do that lead to the big things. Mountains are made up of single stones. The ocean is made up of single waves. Conversations like the one we've had tonight are made up of single words. The secret of success is in taking big things and breaking them into little things. This party won't be successful just because I win this election. It'll be successful because of the little things every one of you do to spread liberty. Helping someone who is down on their luck, cleaning up a neighborhood park, just smiling at someone who is having a bad day. These small acts lead to the big conversations that show we libertarians care. As chair, I promise to help use my experience in business and charities to break these big goals we have into small acts that will empower each and every one of you to spread liberty in your communities and eventually open the big door to liberty in our lifetime. I love you all, and I hope to have your vote. And that really summed up what I was talking about. I believe that we as libertarians, we focus so much on being the smartest people in the room that we lose people. We need to focus on being the most compassionate in the room. We need to focus on these local events like what we've been doing. You know, we just recently went to Pep's Farm, which is a private institute that supports DHS and foster kids at 60% of the cost of the state. And we grilled out, we did that. We've done some neighborhood cleanups. Drew is coming on here. Drew's going to talk about some food drives that he's done. We donated the food from our convention to a local sober house, a local detox facility. Those are the acts that are going to bring people to libertarianism. It's not going to be explaining how great Mises is. It's not going to be explaining to them how great Milton Friedman is. It's not going to be giving them an Ayn Rand book. It's not going to be spreading how everything is 1984 now. It's going to be these small acts, because we've spent a long time being the smartest people in the room, and it's time we become the most compassionate and show that libertarians care.
Excellent. My motivation behind this show and Friday night show is to get folks to look inward to the party, not for arguments, contention, dissension, but to focus individuals on people who have shown and displayed extraordinary strengths in doing great things for the party. I'm convinced, by the way, that everyone has superpowers. It's just a question of recognizing what they are. And we see that with candidates from small communities all over America, waging war on the omnipotent state from the perspective of a candidate for local office. And now, as we do this chair conversation, this affiliate conversation, we get to know individual affiliate leaders who, within their worlds, and each of them are so very different, trying to give people the power and the tools they need to succeed in their battle against the omnipotent state, and provide a structure so which those candidates or those individuals, lobbyists, volunteers, speechwriters, get out the voters, all of that they're enabled in that battle against the omnipotent state. And that's what we found. And there's so much positive going on that, like you, I get frustrated by the naysayers and seek to, if you will, bring to life the real Libertarian Party. Yeah, those libertarians. And there's so many of them. There's thousands of them who are doing great things. And take the spotlight away from whoever none of us have ever seen at an event, never seen show up at a rally, never seen their name on a volunteer list, never even seen their name on a party roster or a dues-paying member or someone who's donated to the party, whether it be time, money, sweat equity, and allow them through their social media rants and raves to bring us down. I just refuse to accept that. And that's what I've seen at every individual affiliate that I've spoken with. Great people working, if you will, together and individually to promote big ideas and to bring those ideas to the forefront of the American body politic. And that's why we do the show, for speeches and folks like the team you're bringing together. So let's bring on our extra guest here. Drew Cook is joining us. Drew, welcome to the show. Tell us about the regional affiliate that you're, if you will, stewarding. We don't use that word governing here, and we certainly don't use the word ruling. We use the word stewarding. So tell us about your background and what you're working on.
Okay, so I am the chair for the central region of the Oklahoma Libertarian Party. It's just the central counties. Look, I'm not real data driven. I know a few of the names of the counties. I know we got a list, but we're actively working on getting all the affiliates set up. So here's how it's worked. We have done everything that we can. We're laying the groundwork, and somebody like me, look, I'm a mixer driver by trade, right? And I'm trying to learn how to read bylaws. I'm trying to learn how to write bylaws, Robert's Rules of Order and all of that. But it's been a growing process. And I'm the founder of the Canadian County Libertarian Party. I'm also an at-large officer there. Like I said, I'm the chair for the region, and I am an active member for anything the state needs. So, our goal right now currently has been just kind of laying the groundwork, getting some of these mechanisms in place and building from there. So yeah.
What motivates you? Is there a single cause? Was there an event? Was there a reason? What woke you up one day? Don't you love that term? You're now woke.
Woke.
Libertarian woke.
Yes. So here's the thing. I'm a nonviolent felon. Okay. I'm a drug offender. I had 2 felonies, and when I struggled with addiction for a great many years. And when I got out of jail, the last time, I was unable to vote, though I was taxed to the hilt. I was unable to participate in the political process whatsoever. Basically a second-class citizen, right? Mm-hmm. And at the time, the local county GOP affiliate, they made national headlines because they were very, very radical in some areas. One of the things that they wanted to do was eliminate the property tax and get rid of public schools. And I was like, hey, man, I can kind of get behind that. And I asked them, how could I help? And they asked me, well, what's my voter registration? I'm like, I'm not registered. I'm a felon. I can't register. And they said, well, we can't use you. You can't be of any help to us right now. And it was just yet another, entity telling me that I didn't measure up, Right. And somehow or another, I stumbled across the Oklahoma Libertarian Party, and these people just wrapped me up in their arms. They put me to work. They treated me as just another person. They actually have language in their bylaws allowing somebody to participate who may be in that particular situation. So while every other political landscape that I could see around me told me that I couldn't fit in, the Libertarian Party was not only there, helping me along the way, but also showing me how I could give back. And so that's what got me plugged into the Libertarian Party.
No, that's wonderful. What single issue in Oklahoma are you most motivated? I think I know the answer to this already, but are you most motivated on a personal level to attack?
Drug policy, without a doubt, without any shadow of the doubt in my mind. So like Natalie had said in some of the comments, we are up there. We are like number, I don't want to give off false data, but we are in the top 10 in the world as far as incarceration rates go around here. And this is something that's kind of a lot of places in the United States have taken up programs like this, but here in Oklahoma specifically, they really push this idea. It's called drug court. And what drug court is, it's a intense supervised probation where you have to drug test multiple times a week. You have to go to classes. You have to go to meetings. You have to maintain a job. You got to go. I mean, it's very difficult to pass. And it's teaches you one thing and one thing only, and that is how to skate by and stay out of jail just long enough to graduate, if you're able to make it that far. The state consistently, over and over again, says that they do not have an issue to drug addiction. They do not have a solution. I'm sorry. They do not have a solution to drug addiction. What they will do is push people to nonprofit 12-step fellowship meetings and pretty much tax them along the way. You have these people every time that somebody in drug court has to take a drug test, that's $20 to $30 off the top. That's an old number, so I would imagine it's gone up, but that's what it used to be. You also have your counseling and things along those lines, individual group-based therapy. You have to pay for those out of pocket. On top of this, you're supposed to somehow find a job with being labeled a felon, brand new out of jail. It's insane, and what we see is people going back and back and back. The recidivism rate continues to jump. It continues to grow. And it's just like, dude, this is a problem. We're not solving it here. So I take the drug policy thing very personal, especially post-COVID, because here's what we've seen happen. Oklahoma, we've been very fortunate as far as lockdowns go, that we didn't have a governor who was too tyrannical. But what we have seen is a lot of meeting places have closed. A lot of meeting halls are now, or 12-step fellowship meetings are doing Zoom meetings. Local detoxes and rehabs no longer allow outside meetings to carry a meeting inside of their facility. And family therapy sessions in local rehabs have completely been axed currently. And so here's the thing. I've been in recovery for 10 years, right? So all of the things that brought me into recovery have been effectively outlawed as a result of COVID precautions. And so that's a mouthful, Pat. I'm sorry to go on a rant right there.
No, not at all. This is the nuts and bolts of being a libertarian in a difficult state. Because there's so many wonderful aspects of Oklahoma, but it's clear that it's clear that there's significant challenges there in terms of the criminal justice system. We got involved on some other programming that I do with the case of Julius Jones and what's going on there with the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board. And there is a movement afoot to get him pardoned. I've only seen it through where he's gotten through the stage 2. I haven't seen any reporting yet on the next step. But when you look at the intricacies of a case like that, and it's let's just take a topside look at it. There is so much wrong with how he was tried, and how much you're looking at someone who's a recipient of a death sentence, and you look at the procedural issues. You look at the overlapping responsibilities between, say, a judge in Oklahoma and a parole board, and you say, the quote that we use here in Rhode Island is in the halls of justice. Justice is usually found in the halls. Mm-hmm. So these are critical issues, and it's quite frankly, it's been left to libertarians. It's one of our burdens, if you will, / responsibilities / joys to challenge that, because seemingly no one else will.
Yeah.
So I quite frankly, I love your passion on it. And I've seen so many folks in the recovery community who are the most passionate because, at the risk of using a cliche, it's learned experience. It's lived experience.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Mm-hmm. I'd love to sit here and say, man, I got locked up one time and that was it. But no, I got locked up a lot. Right. I went to jail quite a few times. I was that addict who, even in meetings, like I could not grasp how to get recovered. I could not grasp recovery. It got to the point that when I got up and got my 24-hour coin or my white key tag, whatever the case may be, people stopped clapping. There was a couple of people who really invested in me, and I eventually got it. But what I'm saying is that so that's what people in a 12-step recovery meeting were seeing. You can only imagine what the people at the probation office was seeing, and this is just that they didn't care. It was just another number. It was another case file. Our approach, and let's just look at it this way. So we are how far away from doing shock therapy on people, the idea that we are somehow on the cusp of some brand new age of mental health is outlandish. I mean, we are still using outdated techniques and outdated policies and pretending like we're somehow making a dent in the problem. When the case is that we are locking people up for a mental illness, because that's what addiction is when you boil it down. It's a mental illness, and you're locking them up. Not only are you locking them up, but when they get out, they have the label of felon to carry around with them. And then they have the burden of all these different, fines and fees and all the fun stuff that comes along with these probation programs. And we're wondering why over the last year, we've seen a 34% increase in overdose deaths in this country. Uh-huh. I think it's pretty plain to see.
Right. No, and that's, again, libertarians look past the rhetoric, the cliches, the language, the pro-clutching, however you want to refer to it, of criminal justice, and actually demand action. And by the way, just justiceforjuliusjones.com is a pretty provocative website. I would give everyone advice to spend some quality of time on it, watch the videos, and it's an interesting nation. Viola Davis, the actress, has been prominent in his search for clemency from being pulled from the death penalty.
Hey, Pat, can I say something real quick?
Sure.
So as Will pointed out, this is something I'm going to try not to tear up here, man, because this is huge. So I've been outside of a jail cell for the last 8.5 years.
Right.
I have been also outside of a set of handcuffs, police officer handcuffs, at least. No, but I've been outside of a set of handcuffs and outside of a courtroom for those 8 years. I have done everything that you can imagine. I went from being a homeless addict living in a tent behind Walmart to being a homeowner on my own accord. Like, I built the life around me. I've done everything possible, but I still have this label of felon. And so I have been going through the process of attempting to get my, the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board has, as you know, with the Julius Jones case, there is a pathway to, getting a pardon. You have to put in an application and go before the Pardon and Parole Board. The members of the Oklahoma Libertarian Party at our last convention took it upon themselves to write up a letter and resolution calling on the governor and the Pardon and Parole Board to grant me my pardon.
Wow.
When I broke down,
that's real love.
That's big, man. That's a big thing. A lot of people look at the LP and they see a political party. When I look at the OKLP, I see people, members of my family now. These are people who've loved me up when even my own family wouldn't, It's big stuff.
No, it's powerful truth. And as difficult as that situation is, it speaks to where our energy should be directed.
Absolutely. So I would be remiss if I didn't bring that up, but that's something big. And I would like to see other affiliates do that as well. I didn't even know that was a possibility. I never would have even thought to do it, but they brought it upon themselves. And that is a powerful tool. I'm hoping, my pardon and parole hearing is, or my pardon hearing is up in July. So I'm hoping for a favorable outcome, but feeling pretty confident, especially with that behind me, No,
absolutely. And when you look at what the party has done nationally for the Ross Ulbricht situation, there's been so many activists in the party who've reached out to what is we could probably spend, I have a feeling, and I hope we get to meet in person, because we could probably spend an evening discussing criminal justice reform and the notion that policing should not be a tool to go out and hunt down people, incriminate people, create pain. That we need to reimagine policing from a community perspective as opposed to a top-down authoritarian perspective. That's the first thing that's got to happen in this country, and we will not see peace until we do that, because we are condemned to continually repeat the same mistakes, reinvest in the same failed approaches, and operate not from a position of love and support, but to operate from malice, hatred, and the execution of power. So I applaud you guys for all your work on that. It's great stuff. Do we have is our chairman still with us? All right.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Well, we've run a little bit long tonight, but first of all, I'm going to ask Drew we engage at the end of every show in what we call shameless self-promotion. And I'm going to ask Drew, because the point of this is to promote and to promote and get folks to recognize this. We've had a bunch of people watch the show tonight. It will stay up on the Libertarian Party Facebook page for people sharing, and people need to watch this, because there was a lot of powerful thoughts and powerful things emanating from the state of Oklahoma tonight. So, Drew, I'm going to ask you first. Where can folks find out about your affiliate on the web? And then, Kevin, I'm going to ask the same thing for you, for the great state of Oklahoma. And if you got any events coming up you want to promote, please have at it. So, Drew, why don't you go first?
Okay, first off and foremost, I want to plug the Libertarian Party Sober Caucus. This is a group of individuals within the Libertarian Party who are either teetotalers or they're in recovery. The idea of this caucus is twofold. First off, being a nuanced voice to those who claim that we are Republicans who just smoke weed, and we are hedonists or whatever other stereotype they want to throw out there. we are, a voice within the party who say, no, we want to seek an end to the war on drugs, not so that we can imbibe or partake, but because we believe that this is the best pathway forward, having experience on the ground floor. So that's the first, reason for it. The second one being that it is a network. So like when I first got involved in the LPs, some of the things that kind of made me hesitant were not knowing who was going to be at whatever meetup, who was also kind of doing the recovery thing. And it's just an awkward first conversation to have for a lot of people in recovery. So anyways, that's kind of the idea. We just started out, but you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, the LP Sober Caucus. And as far as the region goes, like I said, the Central Oklahoma region, don't get me lying. I think I've got the Twitter. We'll have to get it later. Central Oklahoma Libertarian Party region. I'm sorry. There you go. There's us. And then the last but not least, I also I have a podcast called the Clean Libertarian Podcast. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Twitter, on Facebook. And the idea of the Sober Caucus is kind of what I try to espouse in the podcast as well. Tune in. This weekend, I'll have the one and only Spike Cohen on sharing his story of recovery. So pretty excited about that. And that is all I have to plug.
No, it's a hell of a lot. So we appreciate your participation in tonight's events. Mr. Kevin, what say you?
So you can find us at oklp.org. That's where you'll be able to find all of our upcoming events, past events, fundraising, all that good stuff. You'll also be able to go into the little map there, click different regions, different counties, and be able to get to all of their information, the chairs, the secretaries, whoever you need to contact there. So you can do that. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Starting next week, I'm going to be launching a show that will come out on every Sunday night on all of our socials, called Pull Up a Chair. It is going to be me talking about what we in the OKLP are doing, and then different topics from across the state and kind of libertarian takes on those. I also have my podcast with Todd Hagopian, Chief Chats. I have a second podcast that's coming out called Common Sense. Our first series will be me and Hannah Cox are going to be going over mental health. We're going to be starting with high functioning anxiety, depression, addiction, and things like that, and what it really looks like. And that's pretty much all my plugs. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff if you want to follow me on there, but be sure you follow the OKLP because that's where most of my messaging comes out of anyways. Excellent.
Well, thanks to both of you for joining us. You've really lifted us up tonight, and feel free to use this venue, if you will, if there are events going on in the Oklahoma party that you would like to broadcast to the rest of the country for their participation, whether it be virtually or in real time. There's great things happening there in an environment that's politically challenged, where there's so much that needs a new perspective. You are in a position now to provide that. You've just been elected chair. It sounds like there's amazing things already being done. It sounds like you're ready to fire it up. And so congratulations to you and to the rest of the Oklahoma LP.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having us.
All right, guys. You folks have been listening to the Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight, a production of the Libertarian Party Affiliate Support Committee, Valerie Sarwak, Chair, and, of course, the Libertarian National Committee, Joe Bishop, Henchman, Chair. As always, I want to thank John Gapso. He's run the big board with all the graphics and the points of interest that he's managed to bring up. It's an integral part of the show. We could not do this without him. I've been your host, Pat Ford. Again, congratulations to Kevin Hobbie, the newly elected chairman of the Oklahoma Libertarian Party. We will be back next Monday. Well, let's just say this. Friday evening, of course, we have Candidates Corner, 9 o'clock, same bat time, same bat station. And then Monday night, we've got Wisconsin. Wisconsin is on board. We love you, Wisconsin. Looking forward to that. Folks, if you want to participate in any of these forums, we've got plenty of space, particularly right now for candidates. It's a kind of a quiet time. People are contemplating their next moves. Some don't want to formally announce yet, perhaps because of campaign finance laws or different issues they have to contend with politically. But reach out to me, Pat Ford. I'm all over the internet. We'd love to have you on. We'd love to promote your campaign. And of course, we certainly want to promote what you're doing in your affiliate. Folks, thanks for joining us tonight. We will see you Friday night. Be safe, be prosperous, be free. Have a wonderful night. Thank you.